start calling the roll call.
Call to order.
Call to order.
All right. Roll call.
Okay. Cramp?
Here.
Behrens?
Here.
Kanowski?
Here.
Bulow?
Here.
Canuck?
Here.
Schwartz?
All right, we have quorum.
Okay, so land of acknowledgement.
We are gathered here on the lands that were originally home to the Menominee and Ho-Chunk nations. We honor the Menominee and Ho-Chunk communities and are grateful for their stewardship of the land and waters. We acknowledge these ancestral grounds as sacred and remember the complex history of settler colonialism on these lands and the effects that persist today. We commit to a restorative and healing relationship of the original inhabitants and our community.
Thank you. Mission statement. The mission of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, the DATE Committee, is to create a more welcoming, connected, and equitable Oshkosh by consciously including the richness and the complexities of marginalized voices in its planning and function. Okay, so have you guys had a chance to look at the minutes from our last meeting, July 22nd? We approve?
I move
The
to
motion?
I move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
Please call the roll.
Cramp?
Aye.
Behrens?
Aye.
Kanowski?
Aye.
Bulow?
Aye.
Canuck?
Aye.
Okay, do we have any citizen statements?
We do not have any citizen statements for today.
Do we have guests? No.
He is on the he's on the
Okay.
schedule.
Oh, okay. Don't want to jump the gun. So, any public comment on the agenda items?
Nope, no one has registered for public comment.
Okay. So then, let's go to introduction of new members. What should I also be on this agenda?
Yes, of course,
Okay.
we have a couple new members, and of course we would like to introduce Lisa, but of course we're also going to introduce ourselves. We'll let Lisa go last, so I figure we can go around the room first and introduce all of ourselves, and then she can tell us a little bit about herself. So does anyone want to start?
Always.
All right.
Hi, I'm Carl Bulow. I'm current deputy mayor. I am, professionally, I have been at the Day by Day Shelter. I have been at the Oshkosh Area Community Food Pantry, as well as other nonprofits in the community where I've been introduced and impacted by different people that have had different life experiences than I have. Currently a manager at Verve Credit Union over on Witzel, and I have 3 kids. 2 of them are still in school, and we love, our whole family loves the festivals and events that happen in town, especially the ones happening at the Leach and the ones happening downtown, to celebrate the diversity in this community.
So should we go around?
Hi, I'm Amanda Cramp. I've lived in Oshkosh for 6 years now, and I love it. I'm originally from New Jersey, and I think this is the best place I've ever lived. I have 2 sons. One of them will be in 3rd grade at Reed Elementary, and the other one is in preschool. And I'm a queer woman my husband is also queer. We're very engaged and interactive and involved with the queer community around here. We also go to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship up in Appleton, and we do a lot of social justice work with them as well. And I'm just excited to be in this group of people who all have such amazing ideas and such different ways of interacting with the community.
I'm Gray Behrens, they, them pronouns. I lived here since I joined the university in 2011 as a student. 3 degrees later, I moved on after I worked there for 4 years as well. Was employed by Reed last year, and I just started a new position as youth development at Boys and Girls Club. So I'm really excited about that. A lot of my research and academic work revolve around policy, social justice, Title IX, all of that. So I've just carried that with me, and I'm just really grateful and honored to be on this committee and do that work off campus and into the community more.
So I'm Marina Kanowski. I've been with the committee for a couple months. So I work in trade compliance at AmCorp, but I'm always involved with some sort of program like Junior Achievements. I was part of the Rotary Club. I was part of the Women's Empowerment. And right now I'm moving out of state. So this will be my last meeting. I wasn't sure if I could announce here or not, but yeah, it's been a pleasure to be part of Oshkosh. I was an exchange student here, involved in many volunteer programs. Came back because I met my husband 13 years later. We decided to get married, and that's how I've been back here for 8 years, but now we're moving somewhere a little bit warmer. So, yeah.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Michelle Banky. I'm the staff liaison for the committee, also the human resources manager for the city. So I guess always been passionate about being welcoming and inclusive as an organization as well as a community. So this was a assignment, I guess, that I was very happy to accept on behalf of the city. So is there and
Hello. My name's Melinda Moore. I'm the HR assistant. I'm very new to the city. I've only been here for almost 3 months, so it's been a wild ride, and I'm really glad to be here.
But this is her third meeting.
Yay!
Her first time in this room.
I know.
I told her that. I'm like, yeah, you don't know, what the meetings normally look like. The last two we had at an alternate location, and we do have a couple visitors. We'll have them introduce themselves when we get to them on the agenda very shortly. And then, Lisa, would you like to?
Sure. My name is Lisa Knack. I have lived here since 1991. I'm a single mother of a 20-year-old who is leaving for college on Wednesday, so we're super busy. I am a member service representative at Capital Credit Union, where I have been a co-chair on their DEI committee for the past 2 years. I do a lot of volunteer work with Oshkosh Pride, Diverse and Resilient, and just means the world to me. And I love to be here and get involved.
And Lisa and Elizabeth Swartz were just appointed. Unfortunately, Elizabeth did have a prior engagement tonight, but she's very excited and will be here next month. So.
And is an amazing person.
Oh, good.
You're all going to love her.
So, all right.
Okay, so now we have our guest speakers.
Right, so Daryl from the library is our main presenter tonight. We did kind of add a little bit more last minute an update from the Dragon Boat Festival, so we'll get to that right after our presentation by Daryl.
Thank you. Is this on? Okay.
Yep.
My name is Daryl Eshday. I'm the library director at the Oshkosh Public Library. I've been here about 7 months. And this was an opportunity for me to come and speak to this group. It was sort of a last minute addition, I think, to the agenda. And so I want to apologize in advance if my PowerPoint is lacking anything. I did my very best to make sure that it answered all of the questions that you might have. And of course, there'll be some space for questions at the end. Really, the idea behind today's presentation is just to answer the sorts of questions that I thought a body like this might have, to keep it simple and not to get off into the weeds of any sort of social theory or anything, but what the library is really all about. We have a mission and we have a vision statement, and we put them out. And our mission, as it says there, is to help people find knowledge resources, free access to information, preserve local history, and create a vibrant community gathering place. And our vision is a library in every life. Libraries very often have these sorts of statements, and they can be somewhat rote and stale. And so the question I often ask, we're going through a bit of a rebranding at the library, and those of us who've been through reorganizations or done strategic planning, very often the follow-up is, what do these statements mean? What are we driving at when we talk about that? So I thought I'd parse it a little bit just for the audience so that they know what these things mean here. So when we talk about knowledge resources, that means just about anything that's in the library that's usable, accessible, circulable. That means they can check it out. But books, journals / magazines, databases, websites, and of course referrals to experts and organizations. We were talking just before the meeting that we're going to be hosting the Repair Cafe Oshkosh for the first time in September. Our hope is to build those sorts of relationships over time so that when somebody comes up to a desk and says something like, I'm looking for information on X, Y, or Z, most librarians are honest enough to say that we are not the authorities on anything. One of the things we try to be is your bridge to finding the information or the source of information that you're looking for. So there's very often referral to experts, programs, and agency contacts. The adult services on the second floor is excellent about that. Also, the text is a little small, but it says free access. By state law, every public library shall be free for the use of the inhabitants of the municipality which is established and maintained. And by law, we're supposed to make it so that anybody who can come in there does come in there, provided that they don't willfully violate such regulations as set by the library board to make it possible for them to exist peacefully and peaceably in the library. Preserve local history. The Oshkosh Public Library is a pretty proud source of local genealogy. There was a money left to the Oshkosh Public Library by the Zellmer family years ago. Oshkosh is an area with a heavily Germanic genealogy in the surnames, etc. So we have, as a one-time local history and genealogy librarian in another state, I spent the first 10 years of my career in Louisiana, where I'm from. The Oshkosh Public Library punches way above its weight class in terms of genealogy, especially in terms of local genealogy and those of German-speaking peoples, which was an endowment that was left for the library years ago, and they've done their best to make sure that we collect for those things. And finally, to create a vibrant community gathering place. 94,000 square feet of public space is what that library has. It's the biggest library I've ever administered. The building is even bigger than that. I think it's over 100,000 square feet when you add it all up. And there are meeting rooms on the lower level, there are study rooms on the second level, and spaces here and there for people to be able to gather, including the original building. I don't know if anyone knows this we're going to get to that in a minute, but the Oshkosh Public Library in its current footprint is basically the sort of amalgamation of two big architectural efforts. The original 1900 Waters building, and then the mid-90s addition around the outside of it. And of course, our vision is a library in every life. And so what does this mean? I sometimes will talk to people who say, well, the library is a last resort if you can't find it on Google or something. Our mindset is that we would like to be a first resort for every community member who seeks information, entertainment, or a simple non-commercial place to spend time. And I think that non-commercial is always an important thing to mention. There was a book written a few years ago called The Third Place. I'm losing in my mind exactly who wrote it, and it's one that's cited an awful lot by librarians. So I should probably be more versed in who wrote it. But the point of the book was that our society, geared towards commercialism as it is, it's very difficult to find a place where you can just go and be, where you aren't expected to do anything, to recite anything, or to buy anything. And those of us who are believers in the idea of the public library like the idea that the public library is a place where people can come and are not necessarily expected to spend money or to do anything that they don't necessarily want to do. Oldenburg. Quick word about governance. Just because I know that I'm often surprised, being a library nerd myself, I've been doing this a long time, that people will say things like, well, who elected that person to the library board or something? So I very quickly like to say that library boards in 49 of the 50 states are not elected positions. They're appointed. And the idea behind the appointment of the library is to make sure that the library stays a depoliticized arena. We'll get to that later, but in my estimation, a major threat to the public libraries in the United States is the politicization of the whole idea of whether or not libraries should be public or not, and there's nobody immune from that, regardless of their ideological bent. The library board is in control of budgeted money, library buildings, lands, donation, library policy, and so they are to a certain degree legally walled off from the municipalities, at least in Wisconsin. It was that way in Iowa, where I was immediately before I was here, and that can sometimes cause tension. For instance, when I was I'm just going to use an example, and this same thing that sort of could apply here. There was a renovation of City Hall going on in West Des Moines, and West Des Moines, Iowa, where I was, and the city hall wanted to temporarily use some space in the library, and they came to me presuming that they could just ask and I could say it was okay, and I had to stop and explain and say, as per library law in the state of Iowa, as it is in every state, that's a decision that the board has to make. I couldn't even do that if I wanted to. So the library board has a fair bit of control and independence from city councils, mayors, city managers, that sort of thing. It can be overplayed, it can be abused, but it's always something that's in place. Ideally, libraries and municipalities cooperate and that they find efficiencies that way, and that's always something that libraries and municipalities are working towards when it comes to developing their relationship. And of course, to remind people that library boards do have to publicly meet, just like councils, and they're deciding things all the time that involve taxpayer money and public policy, and I think that it behooves those who want to be engaged citizens to know what the library board is up to, what they're deciding on, what their library director is doing. I have to report to the board every week. There's a fair bit of an investment in the community in the library, and I think that people should know what's going on there. So I just want to give that word. So I'm not going to ask everybody to read all of these points. The point I wanted to make with these slides here is that we're getting ready to come up on the 125th anniversary of the Oshkosh Public Library next year. The Oshkosh Public Library, as you can judge from these pictures, etc., has been a fixture in this community in downtown Oshkosh for longer than most of your great-grandparents were alive. And so the Oshkosh Public Library, as I like to put it, it's no startup. It's been a public investment at least since the late 1890s, and our predecessors historically were smart enough to know that communities that have, we're going to get to it in just a second, the public library ideally is a shared opportunity cost by the community, and we can talk about that in just a second. But the point being that between 1900 and 1994, that building existed and it went through various different iterations to where it is now. But somewhere in the heart of that building is the original library that's been standing there since the citizens of Oshkosh decided to have one. So, continuing along with the sorts of questions that this body might have, you might ask, where does the library's money come from? Where you can see that the big sort of Kelly Green slice of the Pac-Man, that's local levy, about $2.8 million. Almost another $900,000 comes from the county, Winnebago County, and the way that funding is decided is usually through usage to rural and unincorporated areas in the county. And through the Winnefox Library System, who's also contracts with us for certain things. An interesting fact about the Oshkosh Public Library is that the Winnefox Library System, which is a library system that incorporates 5 counties in this area, their headquarters and offices in our library too. We are the resource library for that system, meaning that historically what it meant was if one of the small libraries out in the rural areas had a reference question or something they couldn't handle, they would contact resource libraries. Right this very minute, historically, libraries in the state of Wisconsin, I think, are trying to figure out exactly what it means to be a resource library in the library system, especially since so many of those things that resource libraries used to be relied upon for can, in fact, be found through technologies, etc. But it's something that will all work out. An interesting thing to note, too, is that Winnebago County, or the Winnefox Library System, rather, sort of as per state law, adjacent counties where people use the libraries within one county, there's a settling up that goes on a sort of year-by-year basis. It's usually a couple years behind, but the library systems help a county like, say, how much does Outagamie County own Winnebago County, and then the particular libraries of the county for the library service rendered to other counties. So that can give you some idea of where it is our money comes from. Any questions thus far, or should I? Okay. So one of the questions we got, and I'd like to stop here and mention demographics. The measuring of demographics for service populations is a conversation that libraries have been having for a long time. And I will say, at the risk of overstating it, the librarians, I think, are a bit more sociopolitically sensitive than a lot of professions. And so the discussion that we've had is somebody's going to come up to the desk and get a library card. I think that there's the opinion is asking somebody, well, how do you racially identify before we give you this card, or as part of the process? I think there's been a fair bit of concern on the part of a lot of libraries is how off-putting is that sort of thing. And on the flip side of that is we don't have the guts to guess the way somebody may identify themselves ethnically, racially, whatever. That's not something that we want to guess on. So there has been a fair bit of discussion about how does one keep demographics in a library while at the same time not appearing to be any kind of barrier to access, because we're going to get to the crux of the service population question in just a minute. But in terms of concentric circles of import to our mission, I would say we start with the residents of the city of Oshkosh. As you saw, the majority of our money comes from city taxes, and so they have to get the majority of our attention. And then residents of the 5 Winnefox counties, which are listed there, because we have a contractual agreement with Winnefox, and we want to give service to those populations that are somehow paying into the coffers for keeping the library running. They sort of come next. And that is implied the rural and unincorporated towns of Winnebago, etc. So they sort of come next. And then residents of adjacent counties, like in the coming year, I think that Outagamie will be reimbursing Winnebago, the Oshkosh Public Library for service for the first time, perhaps ever. But our library has a system where, regardless of where you are in Wisconsin, if you come up and you bring some proof of address, and you allow us to mail your library card to you, you can come in and use our library as a regular user. And the reason that's important is you'd be surprised how many people live in Stevens Point or something and have to come to Oshkosh to come and get a child for a couple days a week or something like that. And while they're in town, they want to come to the library. So we try to have some sort of reciprocal borrowing arrangement with a lot of other communities. But at the crux of it, the library is a public accommodation, and so we are ethically and legally obligated to serve everyone, being that because of by dint of what we do, we don't give preferential treatment to the service if anybody comes in here, because that would be against the law. And so we adhere to public accommodation law in the state of Wisconsin, and of course the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which says that taxpayers are presumed to be enjoyers of the full benefit of whatever services that they're coming in to get. And that's sort of the watchword of public library service, and ours in particular. One of the question was, how do libraries enhance lives? These are two quotes that I've been dragging around with me in my career for a long time. And on the surface of it, we're going to talk about diversity. James Baldwin at the top. Anybody here ever read Fire Next Time, any of James Baldwin's work? James Baldwin was from the Northeast, originally from New York City, an intellectual, a writer of great renown. He was a black man, he was a gay man, he was a speaker of fluent French, he was a world traveler. And here he is, the 135th Street Public Library, the 135th Street Library, the New York Public Library System, has something of a shrine set up to him, because this man basically said that every chance he got, my childhood was informed as it was by spending as much time in the 135th Street Library reading everything he gets his hands on, and trying to make some connection between the world in the books and in the world that he himself experienced. He wrote a famous essay in which I think he defended Shakespeare, in which he expressed some outrage that so many people were bugged by Shakespeare, where he said, as a writer, Shakespeare informed me greatly. And at the bottom is a gentleman by the name of Thomas Sowell, who's a more political character. I think he's a paleo-conservative writer who's worked for the Hoover Institution. Born in Gastonia, North Carolina, in abject poverty. He moved to New York City when he was about 7 or 8 years old. Had no idea what a public library was. His cousin or his friend Eddie brought him to the public library, put a bunch of books on the counter. He had a panic attack thinking that he was going to have to pay for all these things. And the important things about these two gentlemen is that they would tell you over the course of their lives, it is the public library that informed and changed a lot of things about how my life was going to turn out. Thomas Sowell had been a messenger boy and had been in the Marine Corps. He ended up getting his PhD at Harvard. And anybody who's met him says that he is one of the most data-driven thinkers in the history of the point being that both of them would credit their public libraries, despite their different places on the political and ideological spectrum, public libraries really are. So how does the Oshkosh Public Library enhance lives? Once again, going back to the fact that I've been in libraries a long time, 25-year career. I think we have one of the better collections I've ever administered. We have books there that one of the great things about working in a resource library is they have to be a bit more careful about discarding older books. And we have some excellent, I call them more vintage books that are an important part of the genealogy of any set of ideas that are being bandied about at any time. So we have a great collection. and we do err on the side of access. We are a fine-free library, for instance. Spaces and meeting areas. I found a news article from a few years ago. There's a play area on the lower level for children that was put in 2019. And again, we have meeting rooms, study spaces, and of course the library itself. The reading room, the Waters Building are just places to come in and spend time. And I think that there's a lot of people, those of us who have children, those of us who pursue, I'm a little bit of a chess enthusiast, a reader, pursuing quiet pursuits, that can be very difficult when there's a house full of people. The library can be a place for that. Technology and tech help. The library offers hotspots. It offers video games that can be checked out. Computers in the library. And a lot of people say to me, doesn't everybody have a phone now? And I say, I challenge you to I just bought a house. I'm still new. I challenge you to go through all the paperwork it takes to deal with a mortgage on a phone. I challenge you to deal with, if you're having my father was always tangled up with the VA. Dealing with VA paperwork on a phone. I don't think so. So the fact that there are computers that are of decent download and upload speed at the library, freely available. There's behavioral agreements that you understand when you come to use it, but if you just have to do business, the public library is a great place for that. Events, happenings, and educational opportunities. I say educational opportunities because this is just within the last 2 months. Just a couple, must have been last weekend. We had Kelly Dunham who came and talked about what she went through as somebody who had an interesting person. This was a gay woman who had at one point she'd been a Catholic nun. She had outlived. I bumped the microphone. She had outlived 2 of her partners and was talking about the life experience that informed all of that. And we'll get to that in just a minute, but that's the kind of exposure you might, without paying for it, that's the kind of exposure that might be difficult to have at someplace other than the public library. These other 2 pictures are from the Art After Dark event that happened within the last couple of weeks. I coded a lot of the feedback cards, people saying that they appreciated not only the opportunity to be educated on the various sorts of art they could do, but to spend time with other adults and to meet other people, which is something that we'll get to in just a second. And of course, the library staff and the people. If you were to take an account of the library staff, it is itself a very diverse group. It is generationally diverse. Somebody here right in the Gen X, dead center of Gen X, but we have people who've worked there 40 plus years, and we have people who were born after 9/11, which in my mind is one of these weird milestones of America. Like I'll meet somebody and I go, You've never flown on an airplane where you didn't have to go through a TSA checkpoint. You are in a whole other country. So, and of course, various backgrounds, various sexualities, various ethnic backgrounds, and it all goes to inform the public service profile that we try to maintain, which is making community and sharing opportunity costs. Being a librarian and a book nerd, this is quotes from one of the books that has informed my career more than anything. It was by Robert Putnam. It's called Bowling Alone. It was written at the end of the 1990s, beginning of the 2000s. And he was talking about what was called the law. What they were worrying about at the time was the loss of social capital. The idea being that people didn't belong to bowling leagues. That's why it's called Bowling Alone. At one time in the history of this country, once a week, even grown-ups were going to meetings and spending lots of time with various and diverse forms of other sorts of people. And as the computer and social media has made it even worse, as the internet came along and the social media came along, people have more and more isolated themselves into these dreadfully rigid, ideological, and thought bubbles. Like, if this person doesn't think like me, cutting them off. They're no more good. And what he talks about a lot is the serendipitous connection, and the idea being that you learn how to moderate and modulate your own ideas, your own intellectual life by meeting and talking to other people. It's an experience that you can't necessarily have on the internet, and you can't even really have it in books. So the idea of sharing opportunity costs, and I called it that because there's a quote he has there where poor kids often just organically don't have the kind of opportunities that the kids of means have. I mean, I remember being in junior high and high school, these kids who could afford to go on the class trip to Italy and all this sort of stuff. I was like, they're like in a whole different world than what I grew up in. But the library itself is a sort of shared opportunity cost on the part of a community. It's supposed to ideally help close that gap a little bit between the kind of kid who can afford to go to Italy and the poor kid who might just be able to have to read everything they got on Italy in the library. But the point being that there's supposed to be some commonality of the cultural understanding there. So what does that add up to? That really adds up to inclusion. And since I've been in charge of I'm going to use the phrase in charge lightly, since I've been the director of the Oshkosh Public Library, one thing that we've really tried to lean on is what we call total quality management, which is managing the quality of the library's outputs, throughputs, services, programs. And a key part of that is what's called the voice of the customer. You can't have inclusive service unless you know what people are thinking about what you're doing. And that's the crux and I think that the baseline of what inclusion means. The reason that inclusion is important is because we got to know what everybody's thinking in order to make a society that's totally quality managed. So there's a librarian. There's a librarian / organization man talking. So I'm aware that I'm going long, so I'm trying to speed it up.
That's fine. Take your time.
Oh, okay.
Take your time.
Okay.
You are allowed to breathe.
All right. I beg your pardon. I want to be respectful of everybody's time.
No. Take your time.
So what are the challenges libraries are facing these days? Well, they're pretty much the same challenges that we've always faced. They are number one is politics. I say ideological, budgetary, and otherwise, because there's different kinds of politics. Ideological politics are the sorts that I think librarians fear the most, or perhaps they get involved in them. But that's where people get an idea of what it is that you mean based on their own, sometimes very practiced and rigid worldview. So this is just two pictures I was able to find by Googling politics libraries. Here you've got one person who's got a whole narrative about what libraries do, and they're running with it. The libraries it's full of impure and improper materials, and the librarians are groomers. And then you've got on the other side somebody saying, I trust my library to make these sorts of decisions. I think we're at a dangerous moment in history for public libraries because people are trying, I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of a shibboleth, but it's where people are trying to sort of inject meaning into the idea of a public library that maybe isn't necessarily there. Where they say, oh, well, that person's a librarian. Or they say, oh, that person's a librarian. It can mean two very different things depending on the background of the speaker. And so those of us who continue to hold to the notion of institutional neutrality without shame and who will defend it with our teeth bared, say that the public library is supposed to be a place where no matter what your background is, you're supposed to be able to feel welcome. And, sorry, on the other side of that, you might going to be offended too, because there's going to be some idea in there that's going to bother you. Another challenge you face is culture and history. I meet people quite regularly who say, public library, how long do you think the public library can last, Darryl? And is it more or less just another big payphone or 8-track player kind of thing, or is it like being able to get right through the security gate at the airport? Is it something that's going to naturally go away? I take heart in the fact that the Pew Research has found that, as opposed to what people might think, Gen Zs and millennials are digging librarians more than the boomers did. And they say that they think the reason for that is that there's an ethos of shared cost and shared burden among that generation that I think is admirable and that I'm grateful for as a librarian. The idea that I don't have to, maybe someday, some libraries do tool libraries, we don't do that yet, just mostly because of the liability, but there's libraries out there that say, why do I need to buy a Darth Vader cake pan if I can just check it out that we don't have a cake pan? But the point being that there's things that I don't have to necessarily buy if I'm just going to use it a few times. So I think that, but still, the idea that ubiquitous technology in everybody's house can replace a library is a challenge that we face, and we have to continually make the case that just because you've got it, Mr. John Middle Class, doesn't mean that the whole world has it, and that it's something that the library has to make available to the world. And of course, I can tell you, as somebody who has dealt with an ongoing roof repair project that seems like it started during the American Civil War and continues on, is that there's material realities faced by a public library. Facilities, grounds, wiring, plumbing, cleaning, the roof. That was a picture that I took up on the roof because we had a leak down where it is now under control, it's been handled, but we had to have a fair bit of roofing work done, and that's a reality or a challenge that libraries face. There's been lots of things that lots of librarians in the history of libraries have wanted to do, but you know what? They needed a furnace, and it didn't work out. So that's also a challenge. And of course, market forces and the abundance of choice. I myself am guilty of thinking interlibrary loan could have it here in 7 days. I could get it off of Amazon Prime for $4.95 and have it in 3 days. So the question is can the library win the public's attention and regain any lost loyalty? And is Amazon, how do we make the case that Amazon Prime maybe is not worth the saved time? I mean, not that we would want to make that case, but we want to remind people this is a shared owned asset. The public library is something that you're already paying for, and we would hope that you would get the most possible use out of it. And if there's something that it's doing or not doing that you want us to know about because it rubs you the wrong way, we can always be open to that conversation. So the final question was, what can the DEI committee do to support the library's work? I would say this. I wouldn't be comfortable making an ask of this body if I didn't say, come and assess how the library is doing first. Are we worth your efforts? So I'd say, come and visit the library, use it, get a library card, perhaps spend some time there and see what it is that you approve of what you might not approve of, what you'd like to see more of. That's the number one thing, is to get to know your public library if you haven't used it or you haven't used it yet. Share your feedback with staff, administration, and board. The easiest way forward for a library is to know what the people who are using it and want to use it think about it. That's what I'm all about, and that's what I've said to the staff since I've been here, and they are in general agreement, as is the board. Also, and I'd say try to help us make it a space. It's a community space. I'm getting ready to buy a guitar amplifier off of Facebook Marketplace. Told the guy, meet me at the library after 5. I'm already at the library. It's already a public place. Make your Facebook Marketplace exchanges in the parking lot. There's cameras out there anyway. Come to the library. Use it as a meeting space. You're going to meet somebody that you don't know. Let's spend some time there first. Mary Cosper LaBeouf of the Terrebonne Parish Library, probably my main mentor, when they redid that library back in the early 2000s, she said that one of her goals was to make the main branch of the Terrebonne Parish Library first date worthy. That's a phrase that I really like. I would like the Oshkosh Public Library to eventually be first date worthy. Don't have to spend any money. Let's spend some time hanging out at the library. So consider a library date if you have a. So. Also, to get involved, we're trying to reestablish a Friends of the Library group that's kind of been on hiatus for a couple years. We've already got attorneys working on it. So, but at the same time, there's always volunteer opportunities. There's always donation opportunities. We have a fair bit of money in the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation, and there are library-related funds in there that can be worthy of estate planning and thinking about, tax season giving. Of course, giving to a local government concern like a library is tax deductible. And of course, advocate. Ask people to share their belief with each. You'd be surprised how many people hear about. When I was coding those cards for Art After Dark, you'd be surprised how many people hear what's going on at the library because their mother-in-law told them, or their sister told them, or they got a text from somebody. Let people know about that's going on at the library. And of course, there's always the opportunity to write to decision makers, politicians, and say we'd like to see the library supported, and we understand that these are some of their challenges. And the great thing about in Wisconsin, in a area like Winnebago County, that at both the county and the local level, there's always that opportunity for that discussion because the county commissioners decide how much they're going to reimburse the counties for, and of course the city council helps us decide what the final budget is going to be for the public library. So I think that it can be a real point of conversation both among ourselves and with those who hold power in our town. And that's really all I had prepared, and I'm prepared to take any questions or rebuttals.
Can you start again from slide 2?
What type of volunteer opportunities do you have?
Well, there's, first of all, there's people who have trouble getting around, who might be homebound. There's homebound delivery. Signing people up for different various programs, such as the summer reading program. We had volunteers all this summer at the sign-up table, the prize table. And I will tell you that I'm caught a little bit flat-footed because most of the time the volunteer coordination is done at the department level. But if you contact the library and you end up in a conversation, say I'm looking to do some volunteer opportunities, you will be transferred to the person who can answer it more intelligently than I'm doing right this minute.
Daryl, just want to say one of the things that I love most about the library is the work that you're doing out to get into the community, especially with Sandy and the other librarians on that team. For those that don't know, they go out to local nonprofits, to different meeting spaces, any place that the public is going to be. They can sign them up for library cards. They can help them put items on loan, get that 7-day, delivery starting early, whatever it takes. So just commend on that and keep that going.
We do a fair bit of outreach. We go out to different, connect through tech at the senior center. Yes, we have a librarian who does community engagement and outreach. And I was trying to avoid throwing her under the bus because she's sort of traditionally been the de facto volunteer coordinator. I've been here 7 months, and that's really a question that we have to iron out as a staff, and I really should take the lead on that. And I will admit right here in public that I've deferred a little bit. There's been a lot of things to take care of at that library, but thanks for the reminder that I promise you that I'll be diligent about working some of these things out as we continue to go forward.
And I think too, the library hosts so many great programs, as well as provide space to other people who are trying to help with literacy programs and things like that. And we haven't even touched on any of the people who are able to utilize the library space to be able to better serve our community in general.
And that's a good point, Ms. Banky. I forgot to completely mention it because, as I say, it was a busy week last week, and I did my very best to put something together. But the Oshkosh Public Library is also where the offices of the Winnebago Area Literacy Council are. And so we cooperate with them very closely to the point where the third floor of the library is more or less the offices of the Literacy Council, and they do a lot of work with newcomer families, especially those who are learning English as a second language and maybe have next to no language skills. They try to work. We have a training room up on the third floor, and the different parts of the room are labeled. Like in the corner it says corner. And if you open a cabinet, there's different kinds of money, and it's all labeled because the Literacy Council's trying to basically train people on how to be an American and all of the things that it takes to do that. And so that's happening at the Oshkosh Public Library too. So I appreciate the reminder because I tend to be a little bit library centric. Yeah. So.
Another good reminder. So I'm part of a book club, and then a lot of us like to listen to audiobooks and stuff, and then once you have the card, you can borrow audiobooks. So for those that love phone and can't or think they can't go to the library, there is also that resource, right?
Absolutely.
So it's not only physical books. I prefer the physical books, but sometimes
I have an 8-year-old, and he just discovered the Hoopla app. He was like, "What's that thing you use on your phone at night when you read?" And I was like, let me tell you about it, because I have a master's in library and information studies from UW-Madison. I'm a stay-at-home mom, so I don't use it other than when I get to use it, when I get to do research stuff, or I was going to work with teenagers in a public library, so whenever I can tell teens about books, I get excited. One more little, I get to use it, check. I got very excited when he wanted to use the Hoopla app, signed him up because he has his own library card. And you can set it to books for kids 12 and under, and so he can listen to audiobooks. He can he was reading some comic books on there. It was great. I was really proud of him.
I would posit that in order to get the fullest possible understanding of the various offerings and services, that you would probably have to visit your Oshkosh Public Library. Perhaps even very likely get a library card and attempt to use it and make it a habit in your own life. That would be the best way to get to know the library, because as I say, I probably left out a great deal of what it is that we do. Just trying to, because once you give me a time frame or a deadline, I become obsessed with it. So.
Well, and the other thing that I think libraries are a great resource for, it just provides, like you said, it provides space where you can just kind of exist, and you don't need to buy something or do anything. You can just be there, which is why a lot of unhoused people hang out in libraries, because you can use the internet, you can use the bathroom, it's air conditioned, it's heated, there's water. People usually won't tell you to leave. And I know that there's challenges too with an unhoused population. Sometimes there's different issues that spring up, but from what I've seen at the Oshkosh Public Library, you guys do an amazing job at making people feel welcome and also making everyone feel safe. So I'm really impressed.
We have done our best. And to be fair, challenging patrons come from all sorts of statuses and backgrounds, and as do those that we look forward to seeing all of the time. I mean, we're always flattered and excited when anybody wants to come and spend some time with us. I've started as a library. I started working as a page when I was 14 years old because the library was on the bus line. And here I am. I'm still doing it. Libraries have always been. I dream about the library when I sleep. So I mean, libraries generally. But I think that libraries are, and I refer to them as sort of an ongoing tax return, where you can get out of a public library exactly what you want to. If you do the math, over the course of a $250,000 home, if you do the math, they maybe spend $80 a year of their taxes over the course of the year. And if they're a regular user, they can get thousands of dollars worth of use value out of it. And there are no litmus tests. And I know this is just sort of generalities about a library, but that's one of the reasons that I believe in the notion of the library and the service, and why I'm glad to be here.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl.
So let's move to the new Dragon Boat Festival that is happening in a couple weekends, 2 weekends.
Yeah, September 14th at the Leach Amphitheater. I hope to see everybody in Oshkosh there if they can make it. I'm Jacob Claymeyer. I'm the race director this year, and I'm also a Sustainability Advisory Board member who meets in this room as well. I also do the Repair Cafe. I'm a fixer, fixing electronics and things, so we're very happy to be at the Oshkosh Public Library here September 22nd,
Here.
1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Bring your broken items and we'll try to teach you how to fix it, make that knowledge more accessible on how we can make our things last longer. I also bike for transport, and I also say I'm a free food fanatic, so I really think that foraging is a good equitable way to access food and address food inequality. And I got a lot of the information about how to forage from the library as well. We're really shouting you out this whole time. But yeah, I'm here to talk about the Northeast Wisconsin Dragon Boat Festival. Thank you, Courtney Jenks, for inviting me, and all of you for having me here. I also want to give a little background on the Northeast Wisconsin Chinese Association, and then convince more people to get involved. So a little bit of background is NUCA, the acronym for Northeast Wisconsin Chinese Association, was founded by Chinese immigrants who immigrated from Taiwan back in the 1980s to this area, and it's grown to about 100 families now. The mission statement is that they want to serve and support local Chinese American populations and the people who are friends to Chinese Americans. And also, NUCA strives to promote cultural exchange, building mutual trust and respect in our community. It's important for us all to engage with one another, and that's the way that NUCA likes to address that is to really celebrate the cultures, right? It's a very welcoming way that's fun, I think, for everybody. And some of the ways that we celebrate both Chinese culture and diverse cultures is through our events that we have every year. There's the Lunar New Year's Chinese celebration. And I say it's a Chinese celebration, but really it's multicultural. Lots of different Asian cultures have a Lunar New Year, and we have different cultural performances and food sharing there. That's really fun. There's also a ping pong tournament that happened this year that we're hoping to continue. And then, of course, the Dragon Boat Race, which we're very thankful for the city of Oshkosh to be our partner in this. It really is an interesting activity. If you've never seen a dragon boat race, it's this huge boat, over 40 feet long. Over 20 people get onto it, and you race. You really don't need a lot of training or prior experience with paddling. It is a paddling sport rather than a rowing sport, so you only have one blade to your paddle, and you're almost like canoeing off the side. Maybe Wisconsinites will be more familiar with that. I certainly was. That's why I got involved. I'm an avid paddler here in Wisconsin as well. But has a more than 2,000-year history. There's kind of a legend that goes behind the origin of it as well. There's a poet that was also like a political advisor, and when he was accused of disloyalty and exiled, pretty much the court was subsequently like captured by an enemy, and he was like so distraught because he actually was really super loyal that he threw himself into the river, and he's so loved by the people. They raced out on their boats to try to save him, but unfortunately they were too late. So kind of in his memory, they go out there and they would feed the fish zhangzi, this little glutinous rice meal that's wrapped in bamboo leaves, to kind of feed the fish instead of so they wouldn't feed on him. But it's kind of an interesting background. But at the same time, since those 2,000 years, it's really evolved into a lot of different ways that people celebrate the Dragon Boat Festival, and really it's a good opportunity to get together and to celebrate in a team sport, and also celebrate the food and culture. So again, everyone's invited on September 14th. We're going to have an affinity fair there as well. So essentially what that means is anybody that wants to join and participate in like a presence, like having a booth, can sign up on our website, and there's no cost to that at all. So please join, everybody. And there's also food vendors, and you can apply to that near the affinity fair sign up. We're going to have Dragon Boat races. So we have over 20 teams registered this year. Up from last year, which is exciting. We have 5 different divisions. There's a cancer survivor division, there's a community and nonprofit division, there's a corporate division, there's a youth division, and there's a club division. So there's some teams that will actually come in from out of state and join us, and also ones within that are a little bit more competitive, so they can be fun to watch on the boats. We're also having a lot of different multicultural performances. I just recently went down to the Milwaukee Dragon Boat Festival, which is similar, but I was really blown away by our offering of different multicultural performances like dancing and music and such. It might be better than Milwaukee. Oh, don't tell them I said that. Oshkosh is great, right? We love living here, and I think we're offering a really excellent service to our community to bring people together and to show these different performances. And also new this year, we're having a night celebration. So after the races, we're going to have the event go a little bit further. So we can, we'll have music playing and hopefully some lights and more good food. So yeah, please join us for any part of that as well. We also are trying to track our admission a little bit better this year, just so we can hope to, sustain and expand, this event in the city of Oshkosh. So the ticket prices are $5, but we're having a sliding pay scale as well as other tickets available for free. So please don't let that be a barrier. We're just trying to get a better idea of how many people are coming and participating in our event. And that was one of the ways that we thought of doing that. Primarily, really, I'm here to, again, hopefully get more people involved. We have a very small team of people that organize this event. And we need help in a lot of ways, both to sustain it, but also this year it'd be great to get more people that want the opportunity to help plan a very large-scale event. I typically don't plan events. I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, and this is totally new for me, but when I was offered the opportunity to get more involved with the culture and everything, I couldn't pass it up. So I'm really excited to be making sure everybody is safe on the water this year, and if you are interested in volunteering, there's a sign up on our website as well, and that's newdragonboat.com. So, I'd take any questions or comments from the group.
Oh, I can comment about last year. I was there, and my daughter was so amazed by the huge dragons, like the dance and everything. And watching the race too was super. She wanted to go on the boat. She's only 2. And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, you can't." But yeah, she was very excited to watch everything. It was amazing event. The booth, everything, super friendly. It was a nice day to just sit in there and see what was going on. So
Yeah, we had a lot of fun last year too. It was great.
Thanks for participating. Yeah, hopefully the youth division will get larger. We also think like a lot of the city staff. And,
baby division.
yeah. We actually do have the land dragon boat races. I forgot to mention. So it's actually like a little cart that we're gonna have people on. So I'm not sure the age limit right now, but that might be something they could participate in.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and how does one get involved with being in the boat? Like, how does that?
Yeah. So most of the time, different groups will come together and
Okay.
they'll register for the race. Of course, the registration's available on the website too. There's also an individual registration, so if you don't maybe have 16 to 20 people that want to join up on a boat, we're trying to get more people to maybe fill in some of those gaps. There's no guarantee, but that survey goes directly to me, and I'll try to get you on a boat. So that's on the website as well. And the practices are just a day in advance, but you don't necessarily need to be in the practice on Friday to row, but it'll certainly help you go faster. So.
Maybe you'll see me out on the road.
Yeah, that'd be great, please.
Great. Any more questions? Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see everyone on the water. Okay, let's move on to our roundtable. Any other activities or events happening?
I have one. So the Oshkosh Area School District is having their school board meeting this Wednesday, August 28th at 6 p.m. at 215 South Eagle Street. And they are going to be speaking about banning several LGBTQ books from the OASD libraries. These are not books that are being taught in curricula. They're books that just exist at the libraries. So if you want to speak, you have to be an Oshkosh resident, and they're limiting speaking to 3 minutes. But you would need to show up early to register to speak. And so that also deals with some stuff we talked about tonight. So that's Wednesday, 6 p.m., 215 South Eagle Street.
All right, obviously we have Dragon Boat coming up in a couple weeks again, Saturday the 14th, is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
Saturday the 14th.
And what time does that start?
Yeah, the races start quite early in the morning.
Okay.
To make sure that we can have all the races go. And the performances start, at around, like, I think the opening dotting the I's ceremony will be at just after 8 o'clock.
Okay.
But then, again, join anytime, please.
The Peen Arts Center has had an event on Wednesday the 21st and again on Tuesday, September 24th. Basically, micro sculpture, sensory-friendly visiting hours in partnership with the Autism Society of the Fox Valley. So they've had one already, and they have another event from 4 to 5 p.m. on Tuesday, September 24th coming up. So, there have actually been quite a few sensory activities this month in conjunction with autism awareness, the Autism Society. But that one is still coming up, so I thought I would mention that one. Those are the only ones that I'm aware of right now. If anybody has any other upcoming events that they're aware of, those are the ones that I was aware of. Oh, also, and I think I mentioned this last month, Latino Fest happens unfortunately to be the same day as the Dragon Boat Festival, but that is, maybe you can make both of them. Saturday the 14th, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. in Pierce Park in Appleton. So maybe you can do two.
I don't have any events. Anyone else? Okay. So then the next item in the agenda is outstanding items.
Yep, we normally review future council agenda items, and let me just find that little note on my phone here. So a couple of the upcoming things. Of course, we have our budget workshop Wednesday, August 28th. Is that 5 p.m.? Is that what that says?
Yeah, it's 5 p.m.
Okay. And then I know they're still looking for a date for undergrounding utilities. So anything else, Carl, that you can think of that's upcoming with the council?
Tomorrow we're talking a little bit about a proposed decrease to the what do you call it, fire pit fees, possible trying to figure out how to run ambulances to our outlying communities because we're under budget. We're not funding that appropriately with other communities, so we need to discuss how to handle that. I'm trying to think of other really fun things on the agenda tomorrow night. There's not a whole lot. I mean, there's lots of fun things, but I don't think it really affects the schools.
And if you can't attend, you can always watch it on TV.
Okay. So moving on to the future agenda items, November and December meeting schedule.
Yeah, and of course we can talk about others too, but normally around September-ish, we do talk about the meetings in November and December. The November meeting falls that week of Thanksgiving. It's the Monday prior, so just if everyone can think about their availability and if that's still going to work. And then December is always the week of Christmas. We have a few years chosen to forego the December meeting, but that's definitely something for you guys to think about. So I wanted to bring it up now so that I'm not springing it on you during the meeting, but I will want us to discuss and then, vote. I will vote, you'll vote regarding what we may want to do for those scheduled meetings. So, and then of course, any other future agenda items people have in mind.
How about the new chairman?
Yes, okay. Yeah, that will also be next month. Thank you for reminding me. Since we are losing our chairperson, next month we will have to elect a new chairperson.
Is
That'll
that why you
also be
decided
on
to
the
move?
agenda.
No.
Too much pressure.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
You don't have to tell us. Blink twice.
So yes, that will also be on our agenda next month since this is Marina's last meeting. I only found out about it last week, so I didn't have a chance to put that formally on any information.
Seems like we should just vote tonight to make it Elizabeth Schwartz.
That's how usually it happens.
We have never voted someone in who isn't here, but I did check with the city attorney, and technically we can do it. But we still have to notice it. So it behooves everyone to show up next month. I'm just saying. Any other future agenda item ideas? And of course, you're always welcome to send them to me. I would say, and the chairperson, but just to me for now. And, we can work on getting those on future schedules.
And thank you, Marina, for being a wonderful chairperson.
Thank you so much, everyone. It was a short leave, but okay, so I always forget. What do we say on the adjournment? Motion.
So
I always
moved.
forget that word.
Yep.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nay? No? Anybody?